In the quiet hours of the morning, when the mansion grounds were still wet with dawn's first light, the whispers of yesterday still lingered like smoke in the air. People in the staff quarters still spoke in hushed tones. The cleaner, who was not really a cleaner, the billionaire's mother, who went undercover, and the young woman whose heart had been tested without her knowing. The story had ended with truth, but truth always leaves cracks. And through those cracks, new questions began to rise. The young woman, Leah, who had treated the cleaner with warmth and respect, now knew the truth. The woman she had been helping sweep floors, the woman she had offered tea to, the woman she had offended when others mocked her. She was actually Grace MBA, mother of multimillionaire Kelvin MBA, the very man Leah had unexpectedly grown close to. Yes, Leah passed the test. Yes, Grace saw kindness in her heart. Yes, Kelvin felt something new for her, something hopeful. But in a billionaire's world, a good heart is only the first challenge. Grace had smiled at her in the end. Yes, but behind that smile, a mother's suspicion still lived. Because a lifetime of riches teaches you one thing. Not everyone who looks genuine stays genuine. And so, the real story picks up from here. The next morning, the mansion felt different. Servants walked fast. Whispers floated. And rumors left shadows on the walls. Grace stood on the balcony overlooking the garden, her white robe fluttering in the soft breeze, eyes sharper than ever. She watched Leah from above, quietly, secretly, the same way Leah once watched her thinking she was a cleaner. Below, Leah was helping the kitchen staff prepare breakfast trays, smiling, offering help, moving with her usual calm grace. But something was different today. She looked nervous, as if she felt the mansion watching her. Kelvin walked into the garden, tie loose, eyes tired from a night of thinking. He approached Leah gently. "Hey, are you all right?" he asked softly. Leah looked up with a small, composed smile, just a little overwhelmed. Everything happened so fast. Kelvin nodded. "My mother, she can be intense, but I saw how you handled everything yesterday. I'm proud of you." Those words warmed her heart, but didn't erase the fear, because she knew something Kelvin didn't. Grace had not accepted her yet. Not fully, not truly, not in the way that matters. Before she could respond, Grace came down the stairs, dressed with elegance, radiating power, every step measured like a queen entering her court. "Leah," she said calmly, "may I speak with you privately?" Kelvin stiffened. "Mother, if this is about..." Grace raised a hand. "Kelvin, this is between women." And just like that, Kelvin stepped back, worried but silent. Grace led her into the reading room, with shelves, golden sunlight, leather furniture, a room where decisions were made, a room where futures changed. Grace took a long breath before turning to Leah. "I want you to know something," she said. "Yesterday was only the beginning." Leah swallowed. "I understand." "No, child, I don't think you do." Grace's voice was low, serious, almost gentle but sharp underneath. Being kind to a stranger is one thing. Staying kind, remaining honest, remaining loyal, while stepping into a world of wealth, pressure, attention, and danger, is another battle entirely. Leah's hands trembled slightly, but she held Grace's gaze. "I'm not here for money, ma'am." Grace nodded slowly. "I believe that for now." For now. Those two words cut deeper than anything else. Grace stepped closer. "I will be watching you, not to judge you, but to understand you." Leah breathed in deeply. "I want the chance to show you who I truly am." Grace's eyes softened, just slightly. "You will have that chance. Starting today." "Starting today?" Leah echoed. Grace turned toward the window. There was a shadow in her eyes, a shadow Leah did not recognize yet. "Yes," Grace said, "because someone in this mansion, someone close, someone you don't expect, has already begun to spread lies about you." Leah froze. What do you mean?" Grace looked at her fully now. "Someone has told me something about you. Something serious. Something damaging." She paused. "And before I believe it, before I judge you, I want to hear the truth from you first." Leah's heart pounded. "What lies?" she whispered. Grace stepped closer. her expression unreadable. "That," she said, "is what part two of the story is truly about." Outside the closed door, Kelvin listened, tense, uneasy. And not far away, hidden behind a half-open hallway, a pair of jealous eyes watched the discussion. Someone had already begun the war. Someone wanted Leia out. Someone who smiled in daylight and poisoned trust in the dark. And this time, Grace wasn't the one testing her. The threat was coming from inside. The next morning, the mansion carried a strange silence, the kind of silence that comes right before a storm nobody sees coming. Emily woke up early. She hadn't slept much. The events from yesterday kept replaying in her mind. The billionaire mother, Mrs. Donovan, pretending to be a simple cleaner just to test her. The accusations of humiliation, and then the shocking twist where she proved that she wasn't after money at all. But the real shock? Mrs. Donovan had not apologized. Not directly. Not fully. Instead, she simply said, "We'll talk tomorrow," and walked away. Emily didn't know what that meant. Was she accepted? Rejected? Tested again? Her heart wasn't sure. But what Emily didn't know was that the real test hadn't even started yet. At the Donovan mansion, the mansion seemed more guarded today. More staff moving around. More whispers. Emily walked in nervously, holding her small tote bag close. Mrs. Donovan was already waiting in the living room, elegant, silent, observing. Across from her sat Lucas, the billionaire's son, Emily's boyfriend. He looked exhausted, like he had argued all night. Emily took a slow breath and greeted them softly. Mrs. Donovan didn't smile, just gestured for her to sit. "Emily," she said calmly, "yesterday you proved something, but I'm still not convinced." Lucas's jaw tightened. "Mom, this needs to stop." Mrs. Donovan raised a finger, quiet but powerful. "Not yet." She leaned forward, eyes sharp. "You passed the first test. You didn't insult someone you thought was a cleaner. Instead, you showed respect. That matters." Emily nodded slowly. "But," Mrs. Donovan continued, "there's more to a relationship than politeness. I have one more thing I need to understand." Emily felt a chill. "Another test? What do you want to know?" Emily asked. Mrs. Donovan didn't answer with words. Instead, she snapped her fingers. A door opened, and in walked a man Emily had never seen before. Tall, serious, dressed in black, holding a folder. Lucas sighed. "Oh no, Mom, you didn't." Mrs. Donovan spoke calmly. "This is Mr. Hale, our family investigator." Emily's breath caught. "Investigator? For what?" Mrs. Donovan looked straight at her. "For you? The background check." Mr. Hale placed a folder on the table. "Emily," he said respectfully, "I've been instructed to look into your life, your job, your family, your past, everything." Emily's hands trembled. She felt embarrassed, exposed. Lucas stood up angrily. "This is insane. She's not a criminal." Mrs. Donovan shot back. "I am a mother, and a mother protects her family." Emily swallowed hard. She wanted to walk out. But something inside her, her dignity, her pride, kept her grounded. "Fine," she whispered. "What did you find?" Mr. Hale opened the file. "You worked 2 jobs. You graduated with honors. You have no debts. You support your younger sister financially. And you've never taken a single dollar from Lucas." Mrs. Donovan's eyebrows lifted slightly. "You help your sister?" she asked. Emily nodded. "Of course. She's family." Mr. Hale continued. "And yesterday, after your argument, instead of going home upset, you went to buy groceries for your neighbor, the elderly woman in apartment 2B. Lucas looked impressed. "That's just Emily," he said softly. Mrs. Donovan said nothing. A long pause filled the room. Emily finally spoke. "Mrs. Donovan, I know I'm not rich. I don't have a famous family name. But I love your son. And I'm not with him for your money. I don't need a test to prove that." Mrs. Donovan stared at her, unreadable. The unexpected twist. Just when it felt like the conversation was ending. Mr. Hale hesitated. "There is one more thing," he said quietly. Mrs. Donovan frowned. "What is it?" Mr. Hale slid another paper out of the folder. This wasn't part of the assignment, but during the investigation, I found something unusual. He placed a document on the table. Lucas leaned forward. Emily leaned forward. Mrs. Donovan slowly picked it up. Her expression changed. Her eyes widened. What is this?" she whispered. Mr. Hale explained. "This document shows that yesterday, when I checked Emily's bank records, she had only $43 left." Lucas froze. Emily's face went red with embarrassment. Mr. Hale continued. "And yet she refused to take Lucas's offer to pay her rent. She refused to take money for her transportation. She refused every financial help." Mrs. Donovan's lips parted. Emily looked down, tears filling her eyes. "I didn't want anyone to think I was using him," she said softly. "I'd rather struggle than be misunderstood." Silence. A deep, heavy silence. Mrs. Donovan looked at her, and for the first time, something cracked inside her. Something softened. She whispered, almost to herself, Why didn't you say you were struggling?" Emily wiped her eyes. "Because my pride is mine. Even if I'm poor, it doesn't mean I'm weak." Lucas took her hand gently. Mr. Hale closed the folder. "I believe that concludes the report." Mrs. Donovan's reaction. Mrs. Donovan stood up slowly, walked toward the window. Her voice was quieter than before. "You remind me," she said softly, "of myself when I was your age." Emily looked up confused. Mrs. Donovan continued. "I wasn't born into money. I built everything from the ground up, and I protected it fiercely. Maybe too fiercely." She turned around. "But you protected your dignity, even when you had so little." Emily's heart thumped. Was this acceptance? Mrs. Donovan walked back to her seat. "I'm not done deciding," she said firmly. "Not yet." Lucas groaned. "Mom." "But," she continued, raising her hand, "I will admit for the first time that maybe I misjudged you." Emily's eyes softened with relief. Maybe the storm was finally calming. But then, Mrs. Donovan added one last sentence. "There is someone you both need to meet. Someone who will determine the final answer." Emily's heart dropped. Lucas stared. "Who?" Mrs. Donovan's expression turned serious. "Lucas's father." The room froze. Emily's heartbeat echoed in her own ears. His father? The man who controlled the entire empire? The man even Mrs. Donovan respected? Emily whispered, Does he know about me?" Mrs. Donovan answered, "He does now, and he has requested a meeting." Emily felt her breath leaving her body. This wasn't over. Not even close. The real test begins now. The day moved slower than Emily had ever felt in her life. Every minute felt like its own hour. Every breath felt heavier than the last. Lucas stayed by her side the entire afternoon, gentle, reassuring, but clearly nervous himself. He knew something Emily couldn't yet understand. Meeting his mother was one thing. Meeting his father was something else entirely. The Donovan Empire didn't rest on elegance or charm. It was built on a reputation, a sharp, unbreakable, ruthless reputation. And the man behind it, Richard Donovan, wasn't just a billionaire. He was a legend wrapped in silence. A man who didn't smile easily, didn't trust easily, and didn't forgive easily. Rumor in the business world was simple if Mrs. Donovan was a test. Mr. Donovan was the final judgment, the calm before the storm. Emily sat in the guest room, staring at her reflection. Her hands trembled as she fixed her hair for the 5th time. "What if your father doesn't like me?" she whispered. Lucas knelt beside her, gently touching her shoulder. "He doesn't dislike people. He just reads them. Completely, instantly. He'll see who you really are." Emily looked down. "That's what I'm afraid of." Lucas smiled sadly. "My father doesn't care about money, or class, or background. He cares about strength of character. And you have more of that than anyone I've met." She didn't feel strong. Not today. But she forced a breath. Then a sudden knock echoed through the room. Lucas stiffened. "That's him," he whispered. Emily stood. Her legs felt like they would give out at any second. The entrance of Richard Donovan. The living room felt colder, sharper, like the air itself changed when he arrived. Richard Donovan stood in the center of the room, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit with no tie. His presence filled every corner. No smile, no welcome, just eyes observing, calculating, measuring. Mrs. Donovan stood beside him, silent, her face calmer than earlier, but serious. Lucas walked forward. "Dad," he said quietly. Richard gave a single nod. Then his gaze turned to Emily. She felt it hit her like a physical force. Cold, deep, unreadable. "Emily," Lucas said softly, touching her elbow. "This is my father." Emily stepped forward, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. "Sir, it's an honor to meet you." Silence. Richard didn't answer immediately. He simply looked at her, deep enough that she felt he could see every lie she never told, every fear she ever carried, every reason she loved his son. Finally he spoke. His voice was low, steady, powerful. "Yesterday," he began, "you were tested." Emily swallowed. "Yes, sir." "And today," he continued, "you were investigated." She nodded slowly. "Yes." Richard took one step closer. For a moment, Emily thought she'd stop breathing. "I read every report," he said. "Every detail. Every choice you made." Emily's hands tightened. "And I want to hear the truth from your mouth." The question that changed everything. Richard's eyes narrowed. "You are in a relationship with my son." "Why?" Emily blinked. At first she thought she misunderstood. "Why? Wasn't it obvious?" Lucas stepped forward. "Dad." Richard raised a hand. "Let her speak." Emily felt exposed, cornered, but she forced herself to breathe. "Because I love him," she said quietly. Richard didn't react. "Love is not an answer," he replied. "Love is an emotion. I want a reason." Emily hesitated. Lucas squeezed her hand gently, telling her to speak honestly. So she did. "Because he makes me feel safe," she whispered. "Because he sees me, not my past, not my flaws. Because he treats me with respect. Because he listens. Because he cares even when no one is watching." She felt tears gathering. "And because he makes me believe that I deserve more than the life I came from." Richard's expression didn't soften, but something in his eyes shifted. Slightly, barely noticeable, but real. The test she didn't expect. Richard walked toward the window, hands behind his back. "You know my family is complicated," he said. "You've seen my wife's doubts. You've felt her tests." Emily nodded. "I'm not here to repeat her tests," Richard said, turning around. "I am here to give you a new one." Emily felt her stomach twist. "Sir, what kind of test?" He looked straight into her eyes. "A truth test." Mrs. Donovan frowned at him, surprised. "Richard." He ignored her. He continued. "Emily, I want you to tell me something you have not told my son. Something real. Something that shows me who you truly are when you think no one is watching." Emily froze. Lucas stared at her, stunned. "Dad, that's..." Richard raised his hand again. Silence. Emily's heart raced. She had nothing to hide, but she had things she never spoke about. Painful things. Private things. But she also knew something else. If she lied, if she hid, this was over. She closed her eyes, took a shaking breath, and whispered, "There is something..." Lucas looked at her, confused. "What is it?" he asked softly. Emily opened her eyes, tears shimmering. "I didn't tell you, because I didn't want you to worry. But 2 months ago, I was almost evicted." Lucas froze. Mrs. Donovan gasped quietly. Emily continued. "I paid my sister's medical bills instead of my own rent. I worked extra shifts, but it wasn't enough. The landlord gave me 3 days. I almost slept outside." Lucas's face broke. "Emily, why didn't you tell me?" "Because," she whispered, "I didn't want to look weak in front of you." Silence. Heavy. Real. Heartbreaking. Richard studied her expression carefully, slowly, deeply. Then he said the words nobody expected. "That," he said, "is strength." Emily looked up, stunned. Richard stepped closer. You protected your sister. You endured hardship alone. You refused help not out of pride, but out of responsibility. That is the kind of person who survives storms. That is the kind of person who can stand beside my son. Mrs. Donovan stared at her husband, shocked. Lucas pulled Emily into a hug, whispering, "You don't have to hide from me ever again." Richard nodded. "I am not finished deciding," he said firmly. "But I will say this." He paused. "Today you earn my respect." Emily's breath shook, relief flooding into her chest. But before she could speak, Richard added, "There is one more thing you should know." His tone darkened. Something serious. Something heavy. Emily's relief froze instantly. Lucas frowned. "Dad, what's going on?" Richard looked at both of them. "There is a person in this family," he said slowly, "who does not want this relationship to continue." Emily stiffened. Mrs. Donovan's eyes widened. Richard continued, "And that person has already taken steps to end it." Emily's blood ran cold. "Who?" she whispered. Richard exhaled slowly. "Someone you trusted." Everything shattered. The room fell silent. Emily's breath hitched, frozen between fear and disbelief. Richard Donovan's words hung in the air like a blade suspended above their heads. "Someone you trusted has already taken steps to end this relationship." Emily swallowed hard. Lucas stepped forward immediately. "Dad!" "Who did this?" he demanded, voice trembling with anger. "Tell me right now." But Richard didn't answer. Not yet. He looked at Emily, not with judgment, not with coldness, but with something far heavier. Concern. "Emily," he said softly, "before I tell you the name, I need to know something." She nodded slowly. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "If you discover that the person sabotaging you is someone close, someone you believed was on your side, will you walk away? Or will you stay and fight for my son?" Emily's heart raced. Lucas grabbed her hand tightly. "You don't have to prove anything, Emily," he whispered. "You being here is enough." But Emily stepped forward on her own, because she knew this moment, this test, this choice, it wasn't about impressing the family anymore. It was about standing for herself, for her truth, for the love she believed in. So she lifted her chin. "I'll stay," she whispered. "No matter what the truth is, I won't run." Richard exhaled slowly, almost relieved. Then he spoke. The name that shattered everything. The revealed betrayal. "It was Grace," Richard said quietly. Emily's eyes widened. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. "Grace?" she whispered. "But she's the maid I spoke to every morning. She helped me. She was kind." Mrs. Donovan exhaled sharply, guilt clouding her face. "That kindness," Richard said, "was an act." Lucas clenched his jaw. "How do you know this?" Richard walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small tablet. He tapped on the screen and handed it to Lucas and Emily. On the screen were voice recordings, messages, screenshots, all between Grace and a private investigator. Emily stared at the lines of text, her chest tightening. Grace had been secretly reporting her every move, her every conversation, her relationship progress with Lucas, her reactions to the tests. And worse, Grace had fed false information to the Donovans to paint Emily as suspicious and manipulative. Emily's voice cracked. "But why? I never did anything to her." Richard's face hardened. "She wasn't targeting you," he said. "She was targeting every woman who got close to Lucas. This isn't the first time." Emily looked at Lucas, shocked. "What does he mean?" she whispered. Lucas closed his eyes, ashamed. "Grace wanted to marry into the family herself," he said. "She's been working for us since I was a teenager. She's tried to sabotage every woman I ever showed interest in. I thought it stopped years ago." Richard shook his head. "She got more desperate." Mrs. Donovan stepped forward then, slowly, with emotion softening her voice. "This is my fault," she admitted. "Richard told me long ago to remove her, but I couldn't. She grew up in this house. I thought she was loyal. I thought she cared about Lucas's family." Her voice cracked. "I didn't see what she truly wanted. Emily felt her heart ache. All this time, she thought she was being judged unfairly by Mrs. Donovan, but the truth was far more complicated. Lucas took Emily's hands between his. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "You never deserved any of this." Emily nodded, tears falling freely. "I know," she whispered back, "but I'm still here. I'm not leaving." Richard stepped forward, voice firm but gentle. "And because of that, I want you both to know something." Emily looked at him through blurred vision. "What is it, sir?" Richard glanced at his wife, who gave him a silent, emotional nod. Then he said, "You two have my blessing to continue this relationship." Lucas froze. Emily gasped. Mrs. Donovan smiled softly, a smile Emily had never seen before. "You showed strength that many would break under," she said. "And I misjudged you. I let fear speak louder than fairness. But today, I saw who you truly are." Emily felt warmth rise through her chest. Mrs. Donovan stepped forward and gently took Emily's hand. "You are welcome in this family," she whispered. Emily burst into tears, overwhelmed, relieved, grateful. Lucas wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly as the Donovan parents looked on. For a moment, everything felt complete, safe, whole. But the peace didn't last, because Richard turned toward the window, his expression darkening again. "There is something else," he said quietly. "Something we must prepare for." Lucas tensed. "Another problem?" Richard's jaw tightened. Grace didn't act alone. Emily's heart dropped. Mrs. Donovan gasped. Lucas stepped forward. "What do you mean?" Richard turned to face them, his expression grave. "There's someone outside this family, someone with money, influence, and a reason to destroy this relationship, who has been giving Grace orders." Emily felt a chill run through her body. But Richard wasn't finished. "And that person," he said slowly, "is still watching you." Emily's breath caught. Lucas grabbed her hand protectively. Mrs. Donovan pressed a hand to her chest. Richard nodded grimly. "Part of protecting this family means preparing for the next challenge." He looked directly at Emily. "You passed the first test. You survived the second. But the third," his voice dropped, "will be the hardest of all." Emily's eyes widened as a chill swept through the room. Who is it?" she whispered. Richard exchanged a heavy glance with his wife. And then he said, "We don't know the name yet." The room fell silent again. One truth had been revealed, but a bigger truth was still hiding in the shadows. A truth waiting for part 3.